Call to order. We'll be led in prayer by Mr. Johnson, after which we will exercise a moment of silence for Arnold Ray, retired District Fire Chief, Bastrop Fire Department, Shirley Harris Jenkins, the wife of my nephew, after which we will be led in pledge.
All heads bowed. Heavenly Father, I come at this hour with a heart full of joy, just thanking you for bringing over this entire year this year. We had some good times, we had some bad times, but we all came together on one accord. We thank you, Father, for these times that we had to do what we thought was best for our city. Now here we are again, Father, at the table again. Please, sir, crown our head with wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of the matter at hand. Bless us, keep us, and protect us. Be thou blessed, and we thank you in your darling Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Moment of silence, please. Thank you. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call to determine the quorum, Ms. Goldman.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Nason?
Here.
Mr. Armstrong?
Here.
Mr. Locke?
Here.
All present, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Goldman. Good evening, and I wish to welcome you to this final meeting of this year, 2011, with the exception if we have to have a call meeting. But I do want to wish you a very safe holiday season, and I will ask both chiefs again to do holiday tips to the media. Remember that we want to have fun, but we also want to be safe throughout this season. We have two new officers present. Eric, help me, Ms. Goldman, or Chief Black. McCon. Okay, I see pronunciation on here. Thank you, Ms. Holmes, for putting that there. And James Ward. Chief Black, if you would introduce these two gentlemen.
This is Eric McCon. This is Jay Ward. That's what it goes by. They're new officers. They have some experience. They policed in our neighboring state of Arkansas, and they're transferring their certifications down here, and they just started last week.
All right. Well, I'd like to officially welcome you to the city of Bastrop and to our police force. We trust that you will stay with us as you learn the streets and everything, and feel free to contact me should you need me. All right. Would you like to say something? You don't have to run over each other to get to the microphone.
I'm just happy to be here. Just happy to be employed at the city of Bastrop.
Thank you.
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you.
All right.
I'd like to recognize the graduates that we have in our city staff. I see we have, well, one is not here, Brittany Washington. She's the daughter of Rodney Brown and Sharon Brown, and she is earning a Bachelor's of Science in Biology from Grambling State University, and we want to applaud her and her efforts. And I'm going to ask the chief if you would see to it that she would get this certificate, and I'm going to ask Jared to join me at the podium. This is Jared Montgomery, the son of our fire chief, Eric Montgomery, and this is your second time.
Yes, ma'am.
He is receiving a master's in criminal justice from Grambling State University, and we certainly want to applaud you on this achievement. We're proud of you.
Thank you.
Want to say something, Jared? Want to stay in Bastrop?
For right now, yes, ma'am. First, I want to thank God and thank my parents for being patient with me. I'm going to continue to work right now and live in Bastrop. All right.
We want you to. Our miracle, I just have a few announcements. Everything has been business as usual. But our memory miracle update, we had 120 parents or guardians to apply for assistance through our Miracle Memory Fund this year. And that translates anywhere into maybe 250 to 300 children, because some of those applications had 3, 4 children. And we have not received a whole lot of money this year. The economy is so depressed, and everybody's trying to cut back, but we're going to stretch the money as far as we possibly can. In fact, I did hear from Beekman Elementary School today, and I was thinking this morning, gosh, I wish there were a way that we could give every child something. And by that time, Ms. Hall buzzed me and said Beekman has access to toys and they want to share with us. So we welcome that we will be able to give more children something. And I want to say thank you to the donors who have contributed thus far. But this is a last call to get some funding to help the families. And if you're looking for a trusted organization that you know your money will go where it's intended, because we do have a screening committee and they've pulled out some, and we've looked at who received assistance last year and trying to stretch it as far as we possibly can. But when you know that there are anywhere at least 250 to 300 children who want something, and we will be able to help some of them, but not all of them, it still kind of breaks your heart. So if you so desire, please give to the Miracle Memory Fund. Our money is held over at Shreveport Federal Credit Union. They have given us seed money every year along with other private donors. And we also collect the money here at the City Hall. The treatment facility plant, things are underway with that contract. Of course, the rain will hold them back somewhat, but we're on target thus far in terms of getting a treatment facility plant to accommodate the DG Food. You may have read an article that Wes published, I think about 2 weeks ago, wasn't it, Mr. McKee, in reference to that facility that's being erected out there. We have a 6-month time frame, but it has been projected that it will take less time than 6 months for completion. I want to say thank you to Ms. King. She has been working diligently on means of marketing the Ditto building. So we are looking at some options that we have, and I know you have a presentation tonight. So I want to thank her for her efforts in that respect. The tax season is on officially. Our notices have been sent out, and the clerk's office is going to be extremely busy in the next coming weeks. January 18, 2012, ethics training that's required by the state, and I've been working with Mr. Durham out of the state ethics office to get this training set up on that day. 3 consecutive sessions will be held on January the 18th, and I urge everybody who is a public official in some type of public capacity to please attend one of these sessions. As I appreciated, this gentleman was hired specifically to do the training for ethics training, and they will offer it as a webinar, but he did encourage, if you could personally attend this training, to please do so. that so many things have now changed. I know we have done the ethics training online before, and in fact, I do a lot of training to stay up to date on laws, but we do have some more slots left, Sandra, I believe, to accommodate that January the 18th. And I think it's critical to be able to access that training and be ahead of the game rather than have employees knowing what the ethic laws are without our knowing it before they do. The treatment plant on Martin Luther King South, we are continuing to explore alternatives. Joe, are you prepared to talk a little bit about what I... Okay, well, we'll hold off on that. But we are looking at ways that we can upgrade in a cost-effective manner. And of course, as you know, we have submitted applications through the Water Resource Act for funding. It takes time to hear back from those applications, but we are considering other cost-effective measures in terms of upgrading that system, and much of it is contingent upon where and when money can start flowing again in this economy. One last tip, I want to talk about the parade. Had an excellent turnout for the parade on Saturday night, and I rode with both chiefs, and we threw out candy. But I also heard that safety is getting to be an issue. The children are getting closer and closer to moving vehicles, so I am making this appeal to the public to please help us. This is something we want to continue for the children, but we would never want any event like this to be marked by tragedy, so we need the support of the citizens to help keep the children from getting out in the streets. So chiefs, you might want to meet and start thinking about some safety tips on how we can keep children from getting in the streets, getting close to moving vehicles, particularly large vehicles. If somebody's sitting up extremely high, you wouldn't want a child to get under somebody's wheel. So that's an issue that we need to work towards before we have another parade. That concludes my announcements. Are there any other announcements? Okay. And thank you for your attention. Item number 4, public comments as they relate to items on the agenda. Item number 5, at this time I will entertain a motion to approve the previous minutes, regular meeting November 10th, 2011.
I'll make a motion, Mayor.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Are there any questions? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6, Finance Committee Report, Resolution 11-1416, Bills and Claims for the month of November 2011. Mr. Locke.
Mayor, I move that we accept the resolution number 11-1416, Bills and Claims for the month of November 2011.
Properly moved by Mr. Locke
Second.
and second by Mr. Mason. Are there any questions? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7, Reverend Charles Bradford, parking on the city street. As I have a note here that he will not be here tonight, and I see he is not here. So we will move on to item number 8. At this time, I will entertain a resolution on item 11-1417, commending Ted Grimes upon retirement as District Fire Chief of the Bastrop Fire Department. Chief Montgomery, you want to come and speak to that?
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Evening.
Ted Grimes is part of the Grimes family that has had a long history of being with the Bastrop Fire Department. His dad and his uncle was here. Ted was an outstanding firefighter. He gave 32 years of service to the department, and we was extremely proud to have him, and we wish him well in retirement.
Thank you, Chief Montgomery. At this time, I will entertain a motion on this resolution.
So moved.
Properly moved by Mr. Nason,
Second.
and second by Mr. Moore. Are there any questions? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Chief Montgomery. We'll have a resolution signed, and we can give a copy to him. And you'll see to it that that is delivered to him, Chief Montgomery?
Yes, ma'am, I will.
Okay. Item number 10, Resolution 11-1419, commending John West upon retirement from the Public Works Department. Mr. McKee.
Everyone that knows John West or have ever met him will never forget him. John has been a fixture in the Public Works Department for almost as far back as I can remember. He's unable to be here tonight, but I did speak with him last night by phone, and he wanted to relay his thanks to the council, to the mayor and the council for this resolution.
At this time, I will entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion, Mayor.
Properly moved by Mr. Moore
Second.
and second by Mr. Locke. Was that Mr. Locke?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. West. One interesting thing about him, if you needed a phone number, he would pull out his phone. No matter who it was, he would have the phone number. Oh, Mayor, you need that number? I got it right here. So we really want to give these two gentlemen a well-wishing for their send-off.
And we skipped number 9.
Okay. Okay, resolution, thank you. 111418, commending Arnold Ray upon retirement as District Chief of Bastrop Fire Department. Chief Montgomery, that's why you were standing there looking at me. You should have told me.
Yes. Arnold Ray was a district chief. He retired after 30 years. His family was also deep in the tradition of the Bastrop Fire Department. His uncle, Floyd McIntyre, was a retired district chief. Mr. Ray, unfortunately, was sick at the end, and since he's retired, he's passed. But he's always with us in our heart, and we will always remember him fondly.
Thank you. At this time, I will entertain a motion for this resolution on Mr. Ray.
I'd like to make a motion.
Probably moved by Mr. Armstrong
Second.
and second by Mr. Nason. Are there any questions? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Chief Montgomery. Let us remember that family, particularly at this time of year, to experience a loss of this nature. Okay, resolution number 11. Resolution 11-1420, a resolution adopting a parish-wide hazard mitigation plan for the city of Bastrop. Ms. Goldman.
There, we got a call from the state. They're requiring us to pass this mitigation plan in the event there's another hurricane or some kind of major catastrophe that we might seek funds for FEMA. So that way we can qualify and get reimbursement, we have to pass this. So we told them that we would give them, for sure they got a copy of this. So this is what this is for. Doesn't obligate us anything, it's just if a catastrophe happens, we'll be able to get some federal assistance.
Okay. Do you have any questions for Ms. Goldman? At this time, I will entertain a motion for Resolution 111420.
So move.
Properly moved by Mr. Johnson
Second.
and second by Mr. Moore. Are there any questions? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 12, Ms. Kay King, Morehouse Economic Development Corporation.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Always a pleasure to be here. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the Ditto Building, but I'd like to give a few highlights of the month because this has been a very busy month and there's been some really, I think, significant accomplishments considering that we kind of squeezed Thanksgiving into the month also. But we conducted a e-commerce workshop. LSU Ag Center was promoting that. They had some grant program to help rural businesses get online. And we had a tremendous turnout. We had 20 participants in that, which was kind of the max that we could have in that particular program. And we had about 10 businesses represented, and Dr. James Barnes has been coming back every week and working with some of the businesses, the ones that we've been able to get in and schedule, and that we're helping some of our area businesses get online with their business, because we recognize that in rural areas we may not be able to increase population, but we can increase our market share by touching more people outside of the area through the internet. So that has been very successful, and I hope that we'll continue that after Christmas is over, and we'll be contacting some other businesses for people that might be interested in having their own website or to promote their particular business. And then another program that I attended, and I attend a lot of programs and I don't usually talk about it, but it was Mike Randall from Southern Business Magazine came to the Delta Community College. Northeast Louisiana Economic Alliance sponsored him to come. And he talked about the economy and what's happening in the South. And it was just very optimistic because he had the numbers there that supports that we are having an economic revitalization in the South that's far exceeding the nation as a whole. And this is particularly true in industrial manufacturing. So he had the numbers there to support it, and I wish I could have walked away with the numbers, but the truth is that the southern part of the United States is very competitive right now in the global market to land industrial projects. So we need to just continue to be diligent in this community. I think that we're on schedule from the closure of the mill, where we maybe should be after the closure of the mill, that we're doing good. We need to keep optimistic, and we need to understand that we can still be competitive in this community in the global market. So we should continue to press on with our efforts. And the industrial type development is not dead in the United States. I think it was a very positive message, and I'd just like to share that with you, that we have opportunities here. Then this week I did a follow-up meeting. Clark Forrest from Louisiana Economic Development met at DG Foods, and we had the privilege of meeting with Duffy McKenzie and Bill Bryant in that meeting. So I got to recap a little bit about where they're at in their project. And they are well over 300 active employees right at the moment. So they are on target where they're going. They are adding and are projected to add some additional lines out there. They're adding new products. They're going to be adding some really new, completely new products. And they feel like by January they'll have 2/3 of that building filled. And we're going to be well over the anticipated or the published job amounts at that time. They told me that as of January, they're also expecting about 80 trucks in and out of that plant a day. So we need to continue to be diligent about improvements to the intersection, and so I'm taking that to heart to say we're still having problems down there at the intersection with this increased truck traffic, but the truck traffic is going to continue to increase. And they still have a third of that building to fill, and they intend to fill all of that building. So we, like I said, I was very pleased with the meeting and feel like that project is going to continue to be a big boost to this community and continuing to grow. So that was the highlights, and now I'd like to pass out some information because my assignment from last city council meeting was I was going to do some research on a resolution on how we might aggressively market the Ditto building. So I'd like to pass these out before I talk.
And while you're doing that, Ms. King, do you know if the police jury has taken any initiative in terms of addressing that intersection? I did meet with our engineers, and Mr. McKee and I went out there, and we have a preliminary assessment of what it takes to correct that, but it's going to take a concerted effort on everybody's behalf. Do you know if they've initiated?
I know they have been meeting with Louisiana Economic Development, and there has been some positive feedback on that, but we probably need to initiate a little bit more talking back and forth.
Okay. I did mention it to Secretary Moray at a meeting, and he made note of that particular intersection along with the Marlette light. Mr. McKee, did they ever put the counter up on the other end for the traffic count? After? Okay. Okay, Ms. King.
When I began to study resolutions that have been done and different projects that have been done across the state to market buildings, there's just an assortment of things out there that are kind of apples and oranges, and so it looked incredibly difficult to write a resolution that was going to cover every objective. So as I studied this, I began to think that maybe the strategy would be to really just try to market the building. And I had provided Mr. Lawrence with some of this, but it was just within the past few days, so I'm not sure that he probably hasn't had a chance to check this. But I would like to see us the city look at declaring the building and the land as surplus property to sell by bid. And the reason we probably don't want to go to an auction is because we want to put some stipulations on that. But one of the considerations, and I've got this all laid out on here, so you got a takeaway for you, was that the property was paid for with capital outlay funds. And that's a big consideration, that we want to make sure that we don't sell something and end up, and somebody says, hey, you weren't supposed to sell that, so we want our money back. So that's one of the questions that we need to have asked. We want to make sure that we do everything that's in compliance with bid laws. But we also want to establish some criteria on the sale so that we don't get somebody that bids and they pick the building up for a very low price, and then they go out there and start putting blue tarps over the roof to cover up the holes in the roof. We know there's holes in the roof. The estimates on a number of, well, I've worked with a number of people on this building for the past 6 years, including when former Mayor Hawkins was here. And it appears that it's probably between $1.5 and $2 million just to get this building back into some type of shell, as we say, kind of a secured state with a good roof. So one of the numbers that I came up with is to say that as part of the package, if we can say that we expect the people that purchase this as part of their bid package to spend at least $1.5 million on the building to bring it back into a productive asset for the community. And then we know that to sell the building to create jobs is definitely a permittable activity, and so I think that we should consider jobs credits if they're verified by an independent and qualified professional, that we would take job credits as a portion of the bid. So that would encourage someone who might be a job producer to bid on the building, but otherwise we might attract developers that really have some type of purpose to put the building, use the building. And as I work through the figures, when you're talking about 150,000 square feet, if you start looking at spending $2 million, you still are getting a building there, although maybe with some functional limitations, but you're still getting a building for less than $15 a square foot. So that's a pretty good deal for somebody if a developer has an idea that he thinks that he might can market the building. And we know that if we have marketable buildings, we can attract companies to come. It doesn't necessarily have to be a city-owned building. That the International Paper building where DG Foods is located is an example that we can attract companies with privately owned property. But the main problem with that building is it is in such poor condition that startup businesses have a hard time getting the money to make the repairs on it, and very established businesses that have plenty of money, they might say, well, if I'm going to put $2 million into a building, then I'll go do something else. So I'm projecting right now, let's just go on a little fishing expedition here, depending on how much and if we can do it, and just see what we come up with. And in this package, to provide some incentive for someone to maybe look at the building, that we could say that the successful bidder would pay a non-refundable $1,000 deposit. And for that deposit, that bidder would have the opportunity to really go in and investigate the building and do the due diligence that they need to really decide, hey, do I really want to take this building? But to have it open, and then you got 10 people out there trying to look at the building, that's very expensive for a company to put together that kind of package to say, we're going to go in there and look at everything on the chance that we might be the successful bidder. So by giving the successful bidder an opportunity to look at the building, to make their final estimates and all, and then decide whether or not they really want to continue with the purchase, that might be an incentive to get people to look at the building. And then if they put up the $1,000 deposit, then we have a little bit of money left to re-advertise the building at another time. Just kind of a creative idea on how we might do this, and Mr. Lawrence, of course, is going to have to look at the particulars and see if he can make some suggestions on. We want to be sure that everything is open and above board.
Okay.
And I wanted to point out the benefits, because I researched that of course it's obvious we'd have decreased maintenance and insurance costs for the city. But in addition to that, I've got some estimated tax revenues. I did get these from the assessor's office, but these are estimates based on the current millage rates. But should the building appraise for $2 million on completion of the renovations, the amount of tax revenue generated would be around $12,000 a year for the city and around $19,650 for the parish. Now that parish distributes out to the school board and to lots of different entities. On a $3 million value, the city would receive $18,200 in taxes, and the parish would receive $29,500. So that would be converting this building back into a tax-producing entity. Now, companies that usually come in and bring lots of jobs, they usually apply for different kind of tax exemptions. But so it's a trade-off between jobs and just pure development. but I think that we can all agree that the building in private ownership would produce revenue. And the additional benefits to that neighborhood would be that that building would be back in a productive site and not unsightly to the community, and that we might have opportunity to develop some additional property. I've got a map on the back here, if you flip over to the back page, that shows Camel, and as you go north on Camel, all of that property on the west side of Camel kind of is still on the hill. There's a ridge, and you kind of drop off. So there's good property north, and there's good property west of the Ditto building. So as we look at this area in here and how it relates to Point Pleasant, that this is a prime area to revitalize and to help revitalize the west side of Bastrop. So there are never any guarantees on what's going to work and what's not going to work. But I would like for the city to consider this and look at it and see if we think this can be done, and of course we'll need the support of the mayor and the city council to pursue this if we think it's a viable option.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. King, for all this research, and I know that she has been working on this diligently as we have had some conversations, and I passed on some of that information to Mr. Lawrence, and we kind of had some brief discussions in terms of declaring the property as surplus property. And Mr. Lawrence, you want to talk about what we would have to do and how that process would go, or would you rather just kind of wait and just give us a summary after Ms. King?
I can give you a generic statement on
Okay.
it. I mean, on any property that the city owns, in order for it to sell it to somebody else, this body would have to say that you no longer need it for your own purpose, and therefore it's surplus, and on that basis you can sell it to another party. So that's on any property, and that would be true regarding the property that we're talking about.
Okay. In arriving at a value, I know that you and I talked about that the appraisal is going to have to come in at some point, and Ms. King, I know you indicated projected cost of appraising that building and how expensive it is, and Mr. Lawrence, you want to tell us about the legal ramifications associated with that?
You know, generally, on any property that you're selling, you have to get an appraisal so that you don't err in selling at a price that's too low, because if you do, whatever the difference is between what you sold it for and what you should have sold it for is a donation of public property. So if you sell something for $100,000 that's worth $500,000, donated $400,000 of taxpayer property. To insure against that, the state says you have to get an appraisal of the value. So that's pretty standard.
Okay.
Mr. Lawrence, at such time, if no bids were received at that value, is there a process that follows that?
Yeah, I think that there's about two years ago, there was some recent legislation that talks about what happens if you are stuck with property. After you go through an initial round of trying to sell it at appraisal, you don't get any bids, then you're able to use some alternate methods that allow you to sell it at a lower price. Because at that point, presumptively, whatever appraisal that you got obviously doesn't apply, because if it did, somebody would have bought it at that higher price. So that is true.
And in very unique properties, it sometimes is very difficult to get a valid value of that property. So I think that we'll just keep working on this, and just wanted to keep you, Mayor, I've spoken with you, and kind of keep the city council advised on this, because I know that this building has been kind of a contentious property for the city, and I think it was the right thing to buy it at the time, but there was no money, and I've been through this scenario many times, that when the building was acquired, the city was promised money to revitalize it, and we were hit, Louisiana was hit with Katrina and then Rita, and so for almost a year after that, there was no money available. Then when it came back time around for us to apply for money again, well then some of the conditions had changed to get money. So, I think that we just have to look at some creative ways to move the property.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Any other
Ms. King.
questions on?
You have any questions for Ms. King? And I actually had somebody looking for that money. I think it was an estimated $600,000 that had been pledged.
I've already looked for it too, so I think the time had run out or something, but yeah, it evaporated with the stormwater.
I still think there's hope when we think about how the International Paper Building stayed vacant all those years, and now DG Foods is there. So there's still hope, and we'll just keep the faith. And thank you so much for taking on this project, Ms. King.
All right, thank you.
I know you have to do a lot of research. Item number 13, ordinance 114206, an ordinance to amend section 13-29 of the regulatory ordinances of the city of Bastrop to restrict the activities of parties to whom peddlers' licenses are issued within the Bastrop Historic District and otherwise providing with respect thereto. Mr. Lawrence.
Mayor, I think this is the second reading of this ordinance. From right, it was introduced last meeting. It came based on a request from those who are part of the Bastrop Historic District to limit peddlers and specifically the activities of their peddling goods on an itinerant basis within the 8-block area of the city of Bastrop, which forms the Bastrop Historic District. This ordinance would change that section of the Code of Ordinances when you give a license to a person that's coming to town, and it says if you pay your peddler's fee, you will have a license, but that license will not authorize you to be able to peddle goods in the 8-block historic district area. So if you vote to approve this on tonight, you will be outlawing peddlers who want to sell in the 8-block historic district area, unless they come before this body and get special permission.
Having heard this information from Mr. Lawrence, and I'm sure you recall last month we had some discussion on peddlers in the historic district and had some presentations. I will entertain your motion on this ordinance.
May I move to accept the ordinance 114206?
Properly moved by Mr. Locke
I second that motion, Mayor.
and second by Mr. Moore. Are there any questions? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 14, liquor license renewal. Chief Black.
Mayor and Alderman, I'd recommend the renewal of the liquor license for the following businesses: Happy Stop, 1233 North Washington Street; Easy Mart, 1231 North Washington Street; Handy Stop number 1, 1610 West Madison; Zeke's Place, 439 West Madison; the Veterans Private Club, 2324 East Madison; Johnny's Pizza, 1601 Park Loop Road; Supermart number 2, 1920 North Washington; Ruby's, 924 Luther; Kangaroo Express, number 3452 at 1514 East Madison, and Stop and Shop at 1001 East Madison.
Okay. Having heard this request, I'll entertain a motion for renewal of these licenses.
So moved.
Properly moved by Mr. Johnson
Second.
and second by Mr. Armstrong. Are there any questions? Discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. At this time, I will ask for a motion to expand the agenda to convene an executive session to receive a report on the repeal of Wyatt 4th Judicial Parish of Morehouse 2008-377, number 2, Lothar versus City of Bastrop, 4th District Parish of Morehouse, number 2008-333, number 3, and appeal of White, 4th District, Morehouse Parish of Morehouse Parish, number 2008-333, in repeal of White, 4th District Parish of Morehouse, number 2008-376, and number 4, to discuss a matter regarding People's Water Company that is the subject of a written threat of litigation. At this time, I will entertain a motion to expand the agenda on the items as read.
Mayor,
Yes,
go
ma'am.
ahead and read the resolution and the ordinance too.
Okay, Resolution 111421, a resolution of the mayor and the board of alderpersons of the city of Bastrop, Louisiana, to abandon the public right-of-way identified in the attachment hereto labeled Exhibit A, and we will convene back on that one.
And then you read out the ordinance under that. If you're gonna do that one too, the 114207.
That's the one that you're not going to do, the ordinance, the very last item.
No.
Okay,
No,
that
no.
one,
You're not.
no. Thank you for that observation. Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I'd like to make the motion, man.
Properly moved by Mr. Armstrong
Second.
and second by Mr. Johnson. Are there any questions? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. At this time, we will recess and convene into executive session with the appropriate party.
Utilized by the city for the purpose of developing a road, but it's still dedicated to the city. In light of the fact that the city does not intend to develop it as a road, and so that you can offload any responsibility or liability that might come with it still being in your possession and control, this resolution will authorize the right-of-way to terminate, and for that to inure to the benefit of the adjoining property owners that are now burdened by that right-of-way. So if you were to pass this or approve this tonight, it would terminate the right-of-way and permit the landowners to have the free use and enjoyment of that property without having to be burdened any longer with limitations on what they can do with it.
Okay. Ms. McKee, I think you did some research into that. You want to talk about that? Thank you, Mr. Lawrence.
Mayor, council members, we have did some research into it, and we provided Mr. Lawrence with a plat. I've talked with Viola Water, who handles our sewer, and our sewer main stops at the end of where our street is right now, so we have no plans to develop any part of that right away in the future.
Okay. Having heard this information presented by Mr. Lawrence and Public Works Director Mr. McKee, if you are so inclined, I'll entertain a motion on the resolution.
Second.
Okay, properly moved by Mr. Nason and second by Mr. Armstrong. Are there any questions? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I believe we have completed everything, haven't we, Ms. Goldman?
Yes, ma'am.
At this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
May I make that motion to adjourn?
Properly moved
Second.
and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. I wish you a happy